Welcome to the show. How's everything
Thank
going? We
you.
got Robert John Burke here joining me for Mad Max Radio, Live 65, iHeartRadio, one of the all-time greats. We know him from Thinner, Gossip Girl, Rescue Me, Law and Order SVU. He's done a lot. BlacKkKlansman, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. He's got a lot going on. With the Boston Strangler was recent as well. Welcome to the show, Robert John Burke. How's everything going?
Thank you. Everything's going really well. How about yourself?
Yeah, everything's going well. Congratulations on everything that you've achieved during your career, and thank you for your service as a firefighter as well. That's big.
You're welcome. By the way, it only happened once, but if this thing goes off, I go off. So
Oh,
it probably won't happen, but that's just a heads up.
yeah, no problem. I understand. But how's everything going for you right now? I did want to get in before we really get into your career. Just how is it balancing being a firefighter and an actor? Because they're both difficult schedules at times. Because, like you said, if you get a call, you got to go do the fire service, and then if you're on an acting schedule, you got to be in a on a set for like 18 hours a day.
Uh, as a volunteer in it's a residential community where I live. There's no high risers, there's no freeways, so your response numbers are not as great as they would normally would be. I joke sometimes that if I get a call to a fire or to some emergency at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I have a call time on a movie or a television set at 7 o'clock in the morning, somebody ain't getting their money's worth out of me. There's been times, where you show up and you're a little tired from having responded the night before. And then there's times, I get home from a 16-hour shoot where the tones go off for some fire emergency and you're tired doing that. But who's not tired?
Exactly, especially with the schedules that you have going on. You just got to keep working through it. And I did learn because I went to St. John's. Your son goes to St. John's for law school?
That's right. Yeah.
Wow. How
Yeah.
does he like it?
He loves it. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's there now. He's doing well, and it's a great program, and enjoys its professors, the campus, Queens. So elementally, every part of it is has been a home run for him.
Yeah. No, that's good. I'm glad that he enjoys it. St. John's definitely a great school, alma mater, of course, but
What did you study there?
communications.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
And
communications
that's what you're
journalism.
doing right now.
Yeah, yeah. Put my degree to work. I'll say that.
Putting your degree to work.
But let's get into your early career because I learned that your parents came from Ireland. Yeah, I'm also Irish, so I have that in common with you. And
Mm.
you're strong about the Irish background. But your father was someone when you told him that you wanted to act, he couldn't believe it. I heard.
Well, I mean, he had no point of reference.
Yeah.
He was a farmer uh, for 30 years before he came to America. And then he was a blue collar worker in America, worked in refrigeration warehouses on the docks of the west side of Manhattan. And my sisters were all in medicine of one type or another. My twin brother ultimately went into medicine um, in a technical aspect. And because I wanted to be in the arts, he was worried. I think, how is this going to eat? Is he going to survive? Does he have psychological problems? The poor man, like I think back on it now, him as a father, it was concern for a child. Like this is not, he had no reference. Nobody in our, I can't think of anybody in our family who had gone into the field. So I think that was his consideration more than anything. I think, and I know for a fact he wanted me to be a police officer in New York. He would often say that that would be a good job for you. And so I ended up playing a policeman.
That's right. You have, and getting into everything because it was kind of high school where there was an acting class I heard that you took that kind of interested you, but there were some SAT score issues there with the guidance counselor, and you kind of really had to put things to the side there and kind of decide what you really wanted to do. And then once you hit the college circuit there with SUNY, that's when it really came into fruition for you.
Yeah, in high school, I don't know what it was. Nowadays they have these diagnoses and these observations, oh, ADHD and blah, 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 dyslexia. I know I am dyslexic because the way they describe it, that's what I have.
Wow.
But it even went deeper with numbers and math and arithmetic and things like that. I would suffered greatly in that area. Things would get turned around and backwards, and I just could not grasp certain concepts mathematically. But I always read. I always enjoyed mostly nonfiction, but certain great works of fiction. Um, uh, and so that was firing. Uh, I intensely liked Shakespeare. I understood it, uh, and then when it came time to go to higher education, I had a wonderful guidance counselor who, recognized the fact that let's push this young person to where he's strongest, and that was in the arts and letters and humanities. So yeah, and then I was lucky enough to get into SUNY Purchase, state school. The price was right, and what I didn't know at the time was that the training there was it was going to be conservatory training, uh, classical training, and that it would be of such a high standard. So I was very lucky to get in there and then to kind of make a go of it as best I could and not get kicked out.
I did hear that if you showed up late twice, that you would probably get kicked out of there. That's how strict
Well,
it was.
that was an absence, and two of those, and you were out. And I, in 34 years, have been late once, but I called ahead to tell them I was on the Grand Central Parkway, and there's like an explosion in front of me. So, and the reply I got was, "Don't worry about it. We're 3 hours behind." So, but I've never been late one time in 34 years.
That's amazing. It speaks to why you're in this
Knock wood.
position today. No, it does. It speaks to why the hard work has really paid off for you throughout your career. And after college, just hearing you were doing masonry work and landscaping, was there ever something at the back of your mind that you would get into pursuing acting again? Because you did eventually get that phone call to star in that independent film of your friends.
What happened was in my senior year of SUNY, my dad had passed away, and then I kind of the acting, performing spirit in me had taken such a beating that I just couldn't see myself performing. So I thought I would take a few months off, 6 months off, and the 6 months turned into 6 years. And yeah, I went to work as a laborer because that's all I really could do. I didn't really have much uh, restaurant sensibility. Uh, so I was lucky. I contracted, and even those contracting jobs would subsequently, game up. I started, scraping walls and sanding floors and plastering and everything, and then, I hooked up with a crew that was doing very high end work, in very high end addresses and people and such. So it was an interesting life. Uh, we go back to being late. All of life is showing up. You just got to show up, and then let's see what happens. But it's a good idea to show up early. The old euphemism, early is on time is late, and then if you're late, maybe you're in the wrong um, life pattern set or career.
I agree. It from after because you get those independent films from there, then you get the call for RoboCop 3. Did they just ever tell you how you got that opportunity? Because they were stuck on you, I heard, once they wanted you for the role. Did you ever find out how they picked you out of so many people?
No, I used to joke that they just sat around with headshots covering this part of your face and just seeing the mouth and say, "Hey, that guy's mouth looks like Peter Weller." Um, I don't know how that they found me. I know that they pursued. Well, the offer kept coming across the table for 7 months, 8 months, 9 months, almost 1 year, and I said, "Oh, respectfully, I decline. I'm very flattered. Do you think I can play a monosyllabic cyborg?" It was the third in the sequel, and I thought, this might be a diminishing return artistically and otherwise. But ultimately, I said yes and did it. And I often describe it as professional muscles, literal muscles. Also, could I show up? Could I get this job done? I didn't want to waste any crew members' time. Everybody was working really hard. The costume weighed a ton, but it was like going to a gym for everything. But and of course, there was the acting part, manifesting the power of the uh, character. People would ask me, "Are you going to do something different with the role?" And I'm like, "No, I'm going to try and rip off Peter Weller because I thought he did the consummate job. Why should anybody change that?" As a matter of fact, why should anybody make a sequel? He did so well. I thought it was brilliant, the first film, and so yeah, the call came, and I said yes ultimately.
And it worked out. And I know the fans love you. RoboCop has the cult following there, and I know they love that franchise. I did hear when you were there that there was an accident there with you getting lit up with gasoline and catching on fire. And now, after all these years later, being a firefighter and that happening, did you ever think maybe I could have been a stuntman as well?
No, I had no interest in
No
stunts.
interest in that.
No, it just seemed to be. I mean, as exact a science as they try to make it. And I've worked with some great guys, and when I say great guys, I mean talented, fearless, and safe. Yeah, my first night, some gasoline sprayed and it bounced off something and it sprayed back on the costume. And then the effects guy hit the igniter and I was up in flames. They put me out really quick. Um, and then, everybody was constantly getting hurt on that film. So that was like a baptism of fire in terms of what can go wrong. Uh, I didn't get hurt on that film. I my body did take a beating, but I didn't get traumatically injured. Did I? Yeah, well, I did, but I'm not even going to talk about it.
And then you carrying the Nancy Allen's character down the aisle, that was a tough shoot, I heard. Again, just because of how heavy the suit was, too, over 80 pounds
Yeah. So you couldn't extend your
with the arm.
arms in the rowboat. You had to just keep them by your sides, and your palms came out, like this. And um, I remember we were in a church, and I was looking to see if there was some kind of fly system. How they were going to, pull her on a rope and then lay her in my. And there was none of that. The props guy said, "You ready?" And he handed me Nancy Allen. And you don't want to embarrass somebody and say, "Well, I'm carrying a 100-pound costume. You're about, 103 pounds." Uh, and then manifest that you're this powerful cyborg who's able to effortlessly carry this person. I did 4 takes of it. I was shaking with fatigue by the second take. And if I tell the actress, "Oh, you're too heavy, I can't carry you," that's not a nice thing. So suck it up, carry the actress, carry the costume. Um, you know, it's one of those things you just get through. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to get into Thinner with Stephen King because that's my favorite role, Billy Halleck. I mean, it really was able to express the diversity that you have as a character, just all the emotions, anger, revenge, frustration. It's a deep film when you look at it because horror people like to say it's very narrow in a theme. It's usually a guy that just goes and kills somebody, but this is a well-written story. And of course, it's by Stephen King, directed by Tom Holland. How did you get this role in playing this character?
I remember that audition so specifically. It's 3 o'clock on one of the hottest days of the summer, New York City. And I remember saying to the agent, "There's no way I'm getting this role. So I think I'm going to blow this audition." "No, you should go. You should go." So I stopped at the audition on my way to Penn Station because I was leaving the city that day. And I had, it was one of those auditions where I had nothing to lose, just play. And the casting person said, "You just looked like you were 350 pounds, whatever you were doing there." A week later, they call, they say, "We'd like to see you back." A week later, they call, "We'd like to see you back again." And ultimately, I think Steven had the casting approval, and it was difficult. Uh, the um, the makeup, getting in the makeup chair at 2 o'clock in the morning, getting out of the makeup chair at 5 a.m. I'm sorry, getting out of the makeup chair at 7 a.m. after a 5-hour makeup job, and then shooting 14, 16 hours. Contractually obligated to lose 20 pounds while we're shooting. Stephen King tells me he wants me to play it over the top, very arch. The studio is telling me they love it when I play it simple and natural. The director telling me one thing, Stephen King's guy is telling me another. So it was daunting for me because I was still new and I didn't want to disappoint anybody, least of all myself. So, given the genre, which I'd never done before, horror, uh, I tried to strike that middle balance and be true to the story of this character. Um, it was a very delicate balance between, you're no one in the everybody in the story is despicable. I mean, everybody's killing everybody. Everybody's covering it up. So, uh, yeah, there's all these arguments in terms of plot and character in the aftermath that people have about that film, but people seem to enjoy it and still come up to me and tell me that they enjoy the performance in the film.
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely one for the ages. I mean, the Curse of the White Man from Town, working with Joe Mantegna.
Joe was great. One of the highlights of the project. We reunited earlier in 2024 in January for a 30th anniversary that was hosted by the Oceanside San Diego Film Festival. And that was great to see him again. We had a lot of laughs. And Tom Holland was there, Carrie Wurr, Vincent Guastini, who was in charge of the effects at the time. So it was nice to see everybody. We worked hard.
Yeah. No, you could tell, and with the ending too, because it leaves it up to the audience's decision. I mean, does the daughter die? Does because then the guy that the doctor that the what your wife's character is cheating on, he comes in at the end, eats the pie. And we know he's. It looks like he's gonna die, but you're like, oh man, that your character's daughter ate the pie, the strawberry pie there. So it's not a good ending.
It's a five-way finish to
Yeah.
Doom. You don't really know. It's ambiguous. I think they wanted to leave it up in the air like that.
Yeah, no, it definitely was one of those films, and it just being there with Stephen King and Tom Holland. Now, did you ever, after that, did you ever kind of have a different view of the horror genre and want to do horror films again, similar to that?
No,
No.
I don't read it. I don't watch it. It's really not my thing. We used to say in the neighborhood where we were children, you didn't worry about the dead, you worried about the living. So you know. Anyway, I'm just reading something here. Okay, yeah. So no, horror was not my thing. It doesn't really things that actually happened in history scare me. Supernatural stuff does not.
Yeah, curses, no gypsy curses, none of that. I'll tell you
No.
what, we could use some of those pies for people that are terrible to us, though. We could use some of them.
Yeah, yeah, I would think. I would think. But it's all karma. There's plenty of it out there.
Yeah, it's a big story about karma, but speaking of real life events, let's get into the Boston Strangler, then we'll get into your other work. Was there any connections to going back to even meeting some of the real people from the case, people that investigated it when doing this film?
Yeah, we met a couple of the detectives. They were older guys, and they Loretta McLaughlin was the name of the actual reporter. She was a female reporter. She's on the lifestyles desk. Then all of a sudden, she just, through her own wit and motivation, gets over to this, the crime desk. And she starts reporting on the Boston Strangler and she starts following up leads and going to the scene. And, you know, one of the aspects of the Boston Strangler and the story of Loretta Lynn, who reported it, was her writing ability. She was a beautiful writer. When you're reading her column, man, it would send chills up your spine. She was just so talented a reporter in her, descriptive narrative and the way she would report on the crime. Anyway, she was furnishing leads and clues and stuff to the Boston Police Department for a long time. And one of the older detectives said, "Yeah, yeah, she gave us everything," So she was really, really super talented, and it was a testimony to her on a lot of different levels, breaking the glass ceiling, certainly of not allowing women at that time to, equally be paid, equally hold positions that men did, certainly in the world of journalism. But she wasn't taking no for an answer, and the people of Boston ultimately benefited through her talent and her courage.
Mm. No, it definitely is an interesting story, and it's still an open case too.
It is an open case. They think that Albert DeSalvo was he was probably guilty of the last murder, but as you see in the film, there's like a three-way uh, tie for who these suspects could possibly have been, and that all of them were in the same psychiatric institution at the same time is just really chilling.
Mm. If there's a real life case that you would like to be a part in, as far as like another one of a Boston Strangler, something similar, is there another case that interests you out there that you would like to take part in if it would ever come up and perhaps in production?
Offhand, I really couldn't think of one. If I had time to think, I'm sure there's plenty of cold cases, as they're referred to. Um, when you get a script like that, it's the Boston Strangler was just a super page turner. Um, but no, not offhand. I really couldn't think of
Yeah.
anything.
Well, I want to take it back to Tombstone because it was interesting where the original director gets fired off that, and then your scenes were kind of up in the air at that point. Did they ever go back to reshoot some of those, or they just proceeded forward?
No, what happened was the writer, director, producer, Kevin Jarre, was fired after a number of weeks, and it was I never really got the whole story why he was fired. However, the production was going to be seen through. They brought in a new director, George Cosmatos. Uh, Kurt Russell ended up, and Val, I suppose, Kilmer ended up seeing and shepherding that project through. Um, Kurt had enough to do with being the lead in the film, but he also was so passionate about the project that it was through his hard work. And I would imagine sleepless nights of just figuring out shot lists and how we're going to continue to tell the story that saw the picture through. um, a lot of us were, what happened was we were told good news and bad news. The good news is we're going to keep shooting. The bad news is, well, for instance, this character, and this character, all your stuff is a lot of your stuff is going to be cut. I believe I was one of those characters, but we stayed on. We continued to shoot, and I thought it was. I just was glad to be a part of it in any way. I think it was my fourth film, so just to be around that type of talent and watching those guys work was, a master class in no small part. Stephen Lang and Val Kilmer, Powers Booth, um, Thomas Hayden Church, Billy Zane. There was some excellent, excellent performances.
Yeah, I agree. A big time film. It was star-studded cast, and I did want to get into just you getting into a fireman because I know the story about you losing your close friend in 9/11, and you actually going down to the site and actually looking for him, and that's where it sparked you to want to become involved. And you had to go to the firefighter school and everything that you had going on at that time. Do you look back at maybe this was a manifestation because you look at the roles like RoboCop because you have to carry a lot of gear when you're a firefighter, and you have to go through a lot of rigorous steps to get to that point. Do you ever look at maybe acting in a way, especially in those early roles with the makeup and just the grueling filming process, prepared you and manifested into you becoming a firefighter in a way?
No, I never made that connection. We all have to carry, figuratively and literally heavy loads. But no, I never made the jump between uh, the 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 weight of the RoboCop costume and the weight of a firefighter gear. Um, no, no, I never made that connection. But gear is gear.
Yeah.
When it's heavy, you carry it and you try and do your best.
But what was the decision for you to go back? Because I know you were the captain of an engine, you were also a lieutenant. So what made you go back to just being a black helmet?
Um, I can't say that here.
Oh,
Um, it was a political thing within the department, I would suppose. And, listen, it's a learning culture. Um, when you're in the back of the rig with the younger guys and how you conduct yourself um, is critical so that they can learn. And I think that was my impetus more than anything was to get back to those guys and make sure they really know that everything is critical. How you wear your gloves, where you fasten your fasteners. Every I was taught in the academy. It's not the big things that screw you up on the fire ground that get you killed. It's an amalgam of the little things. 5 seconds here, 20 seconds there, 30 seconds here might be a minute that you need later on in the operation to be effective and to survive it and to help your fellow members survive. So being a black helmet again was just kind of like, heavy is the head that wears the crown. There's a lot of paperwork after any benign, odor of gas down power lines, automatic fire alarms. You're filling out forms while the black helmets are all like kind of done and going home. I just took a year off. It was no big deal. I'm the captain of the second due engine now, and I still love it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's good. Like I said, thank you for your service, and then the people do appreciate you because you're the real heroes at the end of the day.
Nope. Nope. The heroes are all gone. The heroes, I believe, in my mind, that the heroes have passed, and
Oh yeah.
the living guys are just doing. When you put your hand up and you take that oath, everything after what you do is the job. So, but you see heroic things happen. Single moms, immigrants trying to make their way. There's a lot of heroism in this. God, these guys are just. Can you hear this? I'm
Yeah, I
getting.
can hear you.
I'm in a text thread. Um, there's a lot of heroic action and activity out there that is unsung. I look at EMS people, FDNY EMS, EMS all over. These guys can potentially save more people before they have lunch than a firefighter can save in his whole career. And they are really on. So if there are heroes out there, I think it's the EMS squads and the rescue squads throughout the world, because those are the people who are really, really doing the direct help to folks in need. When you dial 911, you're usually dialing it on the one of the worst days of your life. Um, when you dial fire, it's because, hey, there's something sparking over there, or this. But 911 is a kind of for rescue and EMS is a different entity. I believe those are the real heroes.
No, I agree with you now. Yeah, 100%. Especially your breakdown of it. It makes sense. I want to get into Law and Order with your character, Ed Tucker, because this was a big one. People were shipping you and Mariska off. They wanted to see you end there, but then eventually they end up killing off your character. So when did you find out that they were writing you off the show?
Let's see. Uh, Two things happen. One, I say you don't really get the message like that. I was never a contracted player. I was a recurring player for 16 seasons. They were super generous to me. They'd call, they'd say, "Hey, are you busy?" "No, I'm not." "Oh, we're going to write you in." So I was always very grateful. I loved developing the character of Ed Tucker, the internal affairs guy. I've often shared that when you're an actor and, well, this actor, and you're playing the bad guy, it's a lot more fun. It's a lot more fun, uh, especially on that show when you have these established, very strong characters, and you get the opportunity to come in and rattle their cage. So toward the end of my time there, Mariska and I, or rather, Olivia and Ed were an item, and then she decided she needed. I wanted to retire. She didn't. Um, Olivia wants to, raise Noah, her stepchild, and her adopted child, and so we part ways, and then it was left at that. Goodbye, Olivia, you know. And then they called back a season or two later, I think it was, and I said, yeah, I think it's time now. Ed is going to expire." And I said, "Oh, okay." So they did allow me to collaborate on how he passed. And we incorporated the 9/11 cancer into the plot. And ultimately, his suicide, he takes his life, which is was happening at that time in the New York City Police Department. There was a rash of it. So uh, I had the best time on that show. It's a well-oiled machine. I loved going in and being like super prepared. Uh, when they say action, it's like you're not worried about your character and how does my character feel. It's like on your mark, it said go. And acting with Mariska, acting with Christopher Maloney, I often described it as a rush because they really like to mix it up. And the way it was written, I was always you know, the antagonist trying to foil our heroes. And it was just fun. When you're an actor, I think that, when you can really lock horns with another character, that's what makes it fun for me anyway.
Yeah, I know you were a beloved character, especially I know there, but there were times where you'd be out in the city. I heard that people were like, "Oh, leave Benson alone" and all that.
I wasn't beloved until
Yeah, until
very
you got
late in
with
the game.
her.
And even then, I was not beloved. A lot of people did not care that
Wow, because in
this
the comments online, when you read threads and stuff, they said that you two were perfect together. They shipped you, they got rid of you too quickly. You were loved over time, at least from what I've seen in the comments.
that whole world of people talking to each other about characters and actors and shows, I was lost on me. When somebody first showed it to me, I was like, wow, people invest a lot in these fantasies and these shows. I guess vicariously or whatever. But yeah, some people were like, "What's going on?" Other people were, glad he's gone. Uh, so, I think there is a kind of a formula that Olivia Benson, she's allowed to be happy, happy, happy. Oh, not so happy. And that keeps audiences locked in uh, for these many years, 25 seasons. She does it so well. There's never a false note in what Mariska Hargitay is acting. And that's was another, bar that she set so high that I was always really not super anxious, but I was always cognizant of the fact that, you come in with your A game, with Mariska Hargitay and Christopher Maloney and all the other supporting cast.
Yeah. When did this happen? Because I heard about this incident in Costco where this woman said you look like the guy on TV. When did this happen? This
Oh,
story.
that was 10 years ago.
Wow.
She said I looked like an actor, and uh, I kept asking her questions like, "Well, what has he been in?" And you say he's famous, but you don't know his name. And then finally, I said, "Is he any good?" And she said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Is this guy you think I look like? Is he a good actor?" And she said, "He's okay." And I know that was great. I'll never forget that moment as long as I live.
Yeah, no, you don't get caught up in all that stuff. I noticed that as you're grateful. That's something a lot of people need to understand is that when you're grateful and you have gratitude, I think a lot of great things happen to you. And that's something with your career. Everything is kind of just it's happened to you.
Um, yeah, it's an interesting way to look at it. I don't. Well, I go to premieres sometimes, and when I'm obligated contractually to, and there's a lot of the business aspect to show business that I'm not suited for emotionally or uh, otherwise. But I like the acting part of it.
Yeah.
I've been super blessed to work with the people that I've worked with. They're always phenomenally dedicated, hardworking, disciplined people, interesting people. And so that's fascinating to me that I get to uh, do this. I mean, it's crazy. Who gets to do this? So that's never, ever, ever lost on me or taken for granted. There's so many people out there banging their head against the wall trying to get into this business and do it. And how I ever managed to get in and then just keep stumbling along toward the next goal has been really just a kind of a puzzle, like, you know So it mustn't be taken for granted is the way I look at it, you know.
Yeah, you've worked with a lot of the great Spielberg, George Clooney. I know the George Clooney opportunity came right after 9/11. So, was there any part there where to when you were crossing over to becoming a firefighter that I may have to put this on the up and up and maybe I'll put acting to the side? Was there a transition at that point for you, or you were still all about balancing at that point? That was the crossroads of balance.
I was just getting into the fire service at that time. I had completed the academy, I'm pretty sure, and George's opportunity. It was just strangest audition I think I've ever had. Uh, the character was asked to be funny, and I didn't think I'd ever be funny again. Uh, coming off the heels of a year of going to funerals and wakes and collations, as they're called. So when he, when I went to that audition and I acted, and he started laughing really hard, and I think that was even lost on me. And I thought he thought that was funny. And then he's a very loyal guy to his friends, and the fact that he gave me the opportunity to do that role in Confessions of a Dangerous Mind was really, really, really kind of him. Um, and I didn't want to let him down. But there was no crossover per se in terms of the fire service and the training taking away from that time. I go and do the movie. I go and do the movie. We shot in Montreal, and when I come back home, I'm in my home district. I'm on duty. I'm on call. Subsequent to what the call is. So, like right now, if uh, the pager went off, I would go and do that. I would say,
Yeah.
"Sorry, I got to get out of here." Um, so, yeah, it's always been kind of complimentary in a way. It always has worked. There's been times, like I said earlier on, where the two schedules really kind of bang up against each other. But when I first met George Clooney for Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, he was great, and I think one of the elements of the whole thing was that he was an actor. He'd done a ton of work as an actor, and so he was super sensitive and hyper aware of the actor's condition, and allowing for creativity and play and relaxation and focus. He was the best. Just what a treat to work with him while he was directing.
Yeah. Because I mean you've done so much when we look at all the work that you've done. I've seen pictures online, just your experience with Two Guns. I know you've described working with Denzel Washington. You have to bring your best. You got to bring your A game. But I did see the pictures online of you and Bill Paxton. So did you form a relationship and a bond with him while working on the film?
Yeah. So Bill and I first met shooting Tombstone, and we got close there. Both of our wives were pregnant with our first child. So when they visited, we all kind of bonded. And Bill and I were represented by the same agent at that time. Uh, so we kind of formed a bond. And then after that, he was kind enough in a with a project. It was called Bright Shining Lie for HBO, based on Neil Sheehan's Pulitzer Prize winning book about Vietnam. Said to the director, "Hey, I'd like Robert Burke to play that role." And next thing you know, I get a call. Bill is requested, and asked, and so off we go to Thailand. And then I remember being in the lobby. Well, then we struck up a friendship. Then we'd gone to Thailand together. We'd come home. We'd see each other when Bill was in New York. I've gotten pretty close to his son James, and we stay in touch quite a bit. It was an awful loss.
Yeah.
That still we still try and process it. Bill's loss, but he was just such a life force. I'm happy to have ever been in his life at all. But his son James is really just doing great. Uh, making his way as an actor, really, really just unbelievable artist, and I'm very, very proud of him.
Oh, that's great. No, it's definitely a tragic loss there because he was one of the all-time greats. He made it his
No
own.
question about it.
Yeah.
He was just a killer. No apology. Everything his art was like it was very much his own. You know, even in Two Guns, our last film together, uh, uh, he he was playing a CIA agent who's trying to recoup $120 million or something like this, and he based the character on Tennessee Williams. And I said, in what respect? He goes, well, his gesticulations, and it's like, who flavors character? It was a CIA uh, uh, spy on Tennessee Williams. Well, Bill, that's where Bill was operating. Um, always making it more complex and more interesting and compelling than need be, maybe.
Yeah. I heard that Gary Oldman was a big influence for you. Did you ever get the chance to meet him throughout your time in the industry?
No, I never have. Uh, uh, an influence in terms of when I watch his work, I think to myself, boy, that's very strong, centered, focused, compelling. Sometimes when you can't take your eye off of somebody and it's maddening to figure out what are they doing. I just love that. Uh, and no matter what performance it is, to me, is one of those actors who just is, consummate. Uh, I always enjoyed Alan Rickman's work. Also, he was another person. Robert Duvall um, was another big influence. And when I say influence, I don't, it wasn't so much I was a fan as I was a student, not trying to mimic them, but just trying to understand their degree of focus and their degree of throwing things away. What there's so many different ways you can approach a role and a performance, what works, what doesn't. Um, but especially those three artists for me have always been super informative.
Mhm. Spike Lee, you've worked with him 3 times throughout your career. How is it preparing for this role? Just because, in a way, it is a deep film. When you look at his work, it's always big, especially on Black history and things that he touches on a lot of the just everything that goes on with society that has to do with civil rights and even injustices. So, how did you kind of get into the mold for this role?
I think Spike, in terms of his having performed, he's an actor.
Yeah.
He's a great director, but he's also a great actor. So he's really sensitive to what is going on in front of the camera, and I think that's where directors who are actors have a super advantage. But Spike is a lot. There's a lot of short speak. He'll come up to you and so that wasn't the right thing. Do it differently. Um, yeah, he just is another guy. Just allows for the freedom of expression. Take a risk. Don't play it safe. Um, stay within the parameters of the story. The stories that Spike tell are usually so strong that they can take anything you can give them as a character. And so you mustn't give, over the top, or you mustn't go under, but there's this middle area where uh, he just gives you the freedom to interpret. Um, I remember two of the characters I played for him are people who actually lived. One was a general named Ned Almond in The Miracle at St. Anna. He was a general who actually lived. And so I had to research the hell out of that guy. And then the other was Ron Stallworth, who was the BlacKklansman, his boss, Chief Bridges from the Colorado Police Department. So I would ask the real BlacKklansman, Ron Stallworth, Detective Ron Stallworth, what was he like? And he goes, he was a straight shooter. And I was like, what did he look like? How did he act? So Ron was a great help. And I think Spike just left me with Ron Stallworth to develop the character. And then if you're outside of the bounds, he'll let you know. But if you're within the bounds and he's liking what you're doing, it's sensitive, it's intelligent, it's definitive, you're telling his story. Just tell the story. Don't be grandstanding, don't be doing anything extraneous or distracting. Tell the story. See if that doesn't get it done for you. Same thing with firefighting. Put the
Yeah.
fire out.
Yeah.
Don't be doing anything else. Just try and put the fire out. So
Yeah, it's more of a team sport when you look at act. I think a lot of the eyes, it could be a distraction when you're in because you're trying to work, you're working to put a film together. It's not about a one man show.
yeah, you can't do it by yourself.
No.
And some of the nuances of working with certain directors of photography and DPs and stuff like that, directors and lighting people, and you start to become aware of what's dramatic, what's potentially dramatic, what potentially those layers of lighting and sound and costume and makeup can help you tell the story closer to the director's vision, closer to the writer's vision, closer to the overall vision. Um, Very rarely am I out there doing some type of individualistic. Well, this is Robert Burke's interpretation. Yes, it is my interpretation of the character, but I would say I'm a team player, that I am vested in tell you know telling the story that we all came here to tell. I want to be in the same movie as you all. Um, and sometimes I say, I don't get hired because I'm Marlon Brando. I get hired because I show up early. I know my shit. I am trying to be kind to people. I try to tell the story that we're all trying to tell, and then I go home and I don't bother anybody. So
Mm. No, that gets you far in this business. I did want to ask you about the Rescue Me role because you don't play the fireman, you play Dennis Leary's cousin, and we know just from what you've done on that show. But did they ever, because you weren't the fireman, but because your experience in real life, did they ever ask you any questions about maybe adding something to the show as far as what firefighters go through? Was there any things that they asked you as far as them writing into the script at all, or?
no, not technically. There were, at any given time, 12 or 15. There was a group corps of 5 New York City firefighters who would drive the rigs, who would consult. Terry Quinn was a firefighter, Ladder 22, who was the consultant on the project. All firematic questions were left to those guys. Um, you know, no, nobody was asking me for any of that content at all.
Yeah, no, it's definitely became a successful show. I mean, you've done a lot. Gossip Girl. When you look back on just everything you've accomplished, what's the highlight moment for you when you look back at your acting career?
Well, uh, looking back on it, when people say, "Oh, you've done a lot, you've done a lot," that's kind of an abstraction to me. It's like, time passed, I showed up, and those things got done. There's no highlight. Each project had its own pocket of success. Each project had its own, you know, pockets of failure or struggle. Like any endeavor, you're going to have highs, you're going to have lows. But I like different jobs for different reasons. I think I kind of like Gossip Girl because they put a nice suit on me, usually gave me like a fake martini, and that was like a kind of a, it was not a lot physically or emotionally being asked of me. The young people I worked with were fantastic. Uh, uh, and and I thought that they did a great job. And the show became iconic in terms of people are rewatching it. Young people are rewatching it. The cast has all gone on to do great things, obviously. So yeah, different jobs hold different types of highlights. Uh, we're gypsies. We set up a tent here, we do the show, and then we move on to the next tent. And I've been very lucky in terms of the people I've met along the way and the friends and the connections I've made. That I would say would be the highlight of my time as an actor and an artist are the people I've met and the friendships that I've made.
Yeah, De Niro. I know you had a great time with him on set.
I did.
Yeah.
I don't know Bob De Niro. We worked very closely one day, wrestling with each other before we broke through a door, and he threw me around like a rag doll. Man was very very strong. Uh, I did Copland, but only peripherally with him, and then. hide and seek, where that was the one where I had to wrestle with him, and then Limitless, where we played, well, I played his assistant. So just watching him, you know, not in the religious aspect, but there was a certain uh, tone when he arrives on a set. It's like church, or like a temple. It's very, there's a sacrosanct quality to it, and yeah, he's very minimal. You know, he would give it, make suggestions to new actors. Don't do anything. Don't do anything. Just don't do it. And I think to myself, well, that's easy for him. He's one of the greatest actors of our time. We're not going to take our eyes off him. But if I don't do anything, you know, acting wise, I run the risk of looking like a piece of driftwood floating down a river. You know, not very interesting. But I learned a lot from watching him. His comportment on a set, uh, in front of the camera and behind the camera, and you know, consummate professional, and with high artistry.
Especially now, because when we look at the times, just how things are shot, you won't have to go through that rigorous makeup again. But pretty much, I mean, I think there's still people that do it, but now it's more CGI now.
Yeah, um, I suppose it is. I've never done it. The computer graphic imaging. I find it to be very interesting. I wouldn't mind having leads all over me, and you know, performing as the type of actor I am. I like to hide. I like to hide any chance I get in a character in makeup. It's fun, you know, for me. Uh, Being very naturalistic, that's also fun. But when you get to put on, you know, 5 hours of makeup, I remember once I did a film called No Such Thing, where I played a timeless monster who lives off the coast of Iceland. 5 hour makeup job every day, and that was amongst some of the most fun I had in a character. Uh, Again, because it was a script and a story, uh, the prospect of which, you know, it could take anything you could give it,
Mhm.
and so yeah, hiding out in makeup, and just the whole process of, you know, sitting still, and the discipline of, you know, getting up at night and getting the makeup on. It's all part of the, well, it was part of the game in my time, and I'm glad I had it. Certainly, having leads all over your face and gesticulating, and mimicking what it is potentially the computer is going to generate. I suppose that would be fun too. A lot less, maybe a lot less uh, struggle or work.
Yeah. Eh, Are you still thinking about going back to teach at SUNY? I did hear that you wanted to teach there. I know you went back there and gave speeches and stuff, but I did hear that there in an interview that you thought about teaching there.
Oh, no. Well, it was discussed at one time by the former president of the college. Hey, come on back. And, you know, we'd go back over the years and, you know, give talks with graduating classes. You know, you have all this really super strong training. How do you connect that with the real world? Well, obviously, it's the audition process, the agent process, you know, the showing up process, the preparation of the audition. Everything is going on tape now, rather than, you know, going into the office to do the interview. So yeah, we would help the younger people with that, and but I have no immediate plans of going back to SUNY to teach at the moment. I did a bunch of years ago, but I think that's past for now. If that university called me tomorrow and said, "Hey, can you come on up?" and I would go right away. The place was so good to me, in more ways than I can say here. Uh, uh, just the fact that, you know, I think this is just a push for the arts. You know, that there are institutions that still teach us an art. Well, I don't think it's a good idea to get away from art, because it shows us our souls. You know, computers really don't show us our soul, who we are. Um, And these souls, these spiritual developments in us, have we've developed them over 80,000, 100,000, a million years. It is only technology that's kind of taking us away from it. So we have to be really careful to cultivate the spiritual and the soulful parts of us as humans. And I think the arts help us do that, certainly. So
Yeah. And speaking about that, just computers taking away our souls. What's some advice you would give to actors getting it? Because it's everyone's journey is different. You know, some people don't take acting classes, some people get in theatrically, some people take a conservatory course like you did. But now with the emergence of social media and people are all worried about just because the strike happened, so people are all worried about everything that's going on with that situation. Still, could that happen again? But what would you say? Because we have the emergence of TikTok and social media now, to where they're kind of catering to the personalities online that are going viral in an instant compared to someone that's put in a lot of time of work. So, what was some advice you would give to actors in this day and age where a lot of people like to chase clout and they may not be passionately rooted in acting?
I would say train,
Mm.
train as an actor, train your voice, train your speech, train your memory, learn the good stuff, Strindberg, Ibsen, Shaw, Shakespeare. Why? Because they are classic. What does classic mean? Classical means it has withstood the test of time. TikTok, I don't think a lot of the performances I've seen on TikTok are going to withstand the test of time. I know that people who have played, you know, in The Tempest and As You Like It and Romeo and Juliet, and some of those performances I've seen, those performances are going to withstand the test of time. Uh, uh, what has substance? What does not? What's vapid? There's so much, content out there that's just, we have a name for it. It's called doom scrolling. But what is it, that will make you stop, that reaches out to you? It's usually something that touches you, on a human level. To the new actor, musician, dancer, writer, painter, do it. Just do it. Do it. You look at my credits. There's always a short film, short film, short film, short film, short film. I love that arena. If you have a phone, you can make a film. Uh, we just shot a film with my friend Hal Hartley, the man, the director, auteur who gave me my career. I just shot a film with him, a very modest budget. We all got back together again in April, May of this year. I think I shot for 3 days in lieu of another job I was doing. But yeah, if you're new, read, read the classics. And again, the definition is something that has withstood the test of time. Uh, uh, and there's a reason for it. Aristotle would say that there are, only seven basic plot lines. Well, that's kind of changing now with the onset of artificial intelligence. There's all these crazy amalgams of plot lines and supernatural and but like the Marvel movies and all that stuff, you know, uh, you're going to reach a point of saturation with those projects and those storylines where they're not going to be very interesting. Uh, 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 when you're uh, making stories about people who are invulnerability, I like stories about people who are vulnerable and succeed and struggle and get by. So again, to your point and to your question, what advice my suggestion would be, if you have $20, make a $20 movie.
Mm.
You can make a 1 minute movie, a 5 minute movie. But if you're an actor, there are classes. I think train as an actor. If you're able to go to university for it, definitely do that. Read as much as possible. Read about every single error, prehistory, history, um, Rome, the Middle Ages. Read it all. Read every bit of it. Uh, and then because your job will be ultimately one day to hold up a mirror, and say this is what this time was. Um, so yeah, not to be sorry, long-winded.
No, it was perfect and informative. And you mentioned AI there because that's what happened with the whole strike, and that's another major concern I know actors are worried about.
Yeah, yeah. Listen, there will come a time when you'll have the choice between seeing art that's generated by a computer or a human. And while AI art is, fascinating, I don't find it to be particularly interesting. I can spot it, like, oh, that's AI. What craziness is this? But when it's human generated, then it just, for me, it's a lot more familial and compelling. You can say, oh, somebody really, wow, this comes out of the human condition. But yeah, we're going to have to strike a balance.
Yeah, no, it'll happen. It's gonna have to happen because humans have to
It's it's
survive.
it's
And I know,
it's happening.
yeah, we can't
It's
stop
happening.
machines. I know that, but we can't get rid of humans either. So there's gonna have to be that balance there. Robert, is there anything else that you're working on upcoming now, as far as movies in the works that you could speak on? Anything else on the way?
You know what? Here's another thing that's happened in a lot of people's careers. There's a thing called the NDA, non-disclosure agreement. So when I'm looking back at what I did in the last year, I can't disclose it. I can't talk about
Okay.
it. And when I'm looking at what I'm about to do in the future, I can't disclose it either.
Yeah.
So, I will tell you, I'm not working for the Central Intelligence Agency, but at the same time, I can't tell you what I've been working on. It's exciting. Both projects are just beyond uh, uh, thrilling for me to be involved with, but I can't speak to them now. Uh, I'll drop I'll drop a line to you and let you know when I am allowed to let you know.
Oh wow. No, I appreciate that. I really do. Robert John Burke, is anything else you would love to let the audience know here today? Anything else that we didn't
No,
cover
dude,
about your
nice
career?
nice to speak with you. Nice to pass along any help or information that I can. So thanks for speaking.
Of course, anytime. You're always welcome back on the show. Like I said, thank you for your service, just everything you've done in the entertainment industry with your film work, and go Johnnies. I will say that because now you're a part of us now, kind of way.
I'll be going over to the Lou Carnesecca gym and watching some ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't gotten over there yet, but we will this season, I believe.
Yeah. Hopefully they got a winning team this year, Rick Pitino being back, so maybe they'll go further.
They came out of the gate real strong last year, but then it kind of faded.
Yeah.
So we'll see what's happened this season.
Yeah, we'll see. But Robert John Burke, thank you again for everything that you do, and you're always welcome on the show. Thank you to the agents, your agents, for helping setting this up and getting us connected as well. I'll be in touch, especially with following your upcoming film work. I'm really curious and piqued what you got on the way.
Nice, nice. All right, thank you so much.
All right, Robert, take care. Enjoy the rest of your day. All right.
Peace.
All
Bye
right.
now.
Peace out. Bye bye.